Ever since Fallout 76 let us play as ghouls, I've been having an absolute blast experimenting with new builds and combinations. The one I've had the most fun with, hands down, is something I call the Feral Scientist. It's probably the most fun I've had in this game in years, and I just had to share it with everyone. Now keep in mind, this is a work in progress. I'm still learning more about the ghoul mechanics, so I'll be tweaking stuff as I go. If you see something that should be tweaked, let me know in the comments, but trust me, this build, the way it is, completely slaps. Obviously, it can be fine-tuned here and there, but let's dive into what makes the Feral Scientist. Before we get into perks and gear, though, we gotta talk about the feral mechanic. Once you become a ghoul, you get access to the feral meter. You fill it by taking chems, not stim packs though, and when the meter empties out, you go feral, and by the way, the buffs that you get from going feral, 100% mandatory for this build. If it wasn't for those bonuses, I would not be making this video. Now, when you're feral, you get plus 150% melee damage. That is insane. The trade-off though, you lose 300% VATS accuracy and range, but who cares? We're not relying on VATS in this video. We've got AoE weapons and pure face smashing brutality with our melee weapons. This 150% melee bonus is what puts the Feral in the Feral Scientist. That's why it's 100% mandatory. Obviously, the weapons that we're going to be using in this video are amazing without this this bonus of being feral, but that 150% melee damage kind of carries us to where we're able to use other weapons. Obviously, we're still going to be boosting melee damage, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. Like I said, being feral, though, 100% worth it for this build, not if you want to make a ghoul gunslinger like in the Fallout show. Now, I want to start off with the legendary perks. Just a little bit of pre-information. I don't really focus on these too much. I know it's a little bit of a letdown, but this was my main character. I started a new character once that update came out, and then that character ended up becoming my main because it was a VATS commando, and it's really easy to level up on that character. So when this update came out of the legendary perks, I put most of the attention into that new character, which is now my main character, so I neglected this ghoul character. Unfortunately, I will be changing them out over time, and I will be tweaking them, so let me know in the comments if you would change any of these. However, let's start off with the first one. We're going with Feral Rage or Electric Absorption if you're running Power Armor. That's right, this build you can run Power Armor with. You just have to change out one legendary perk and one normal perk. So if you want to run Power Armor, keep Electric Absorption on just for that extra fusion chance. If not, Feral Rage, perfect. You want to spend as less glow as you can for those attacks because we will have a bunch of glow procking perk cards going on at the same time. So the first one for DPS that we're going to talk about is taking one for the team. Since we're always going to be taking damage from an enemy that we're attacking, this thing will basically always be procking, so it's just a great way to get extra DPS. Same thing with the far-flung fireworks. Again, extra DPS. I do use ranged weapons about half the time on this build, if not a little bit more, because the gamma gun is so helpful. You just shoot people and then you just heal yourself with it. It's basically like a vampire's weapon, just with a little bit more damage. So I'm still getting some solid use out of this thing. You can swap it out for the melee one if you wanted to use melee, or you can swap it out entirely if you wanted to get some extra perk points and one of the extra special abilities. Now, the next three that I have are all going to be perk points because I just needed some extra, so they're all pretty self-explanatory. First one up, we have Legendary Intelligence because we needed more intelligence. Second up, we have Legendary Agility because I needed some more agility. And then third and final, we have Legendary Luck because I needed some extra luck points. Pretty self-explanatory. Feral Rage or Electric Absorption if you want to use Power Armor. Far-flung Fireworks, taking one for the team. Legendary Intelligence, Legendary Agility, and Legendary Luck. Those are the 5 legendary perks, and the ones that are really, really important, I would say taking one for the team, and then the 3 legendary special attribute ones. Now, moving on to the perks. Now that we got the feral mechanics and the legendary perks out of the way, which, again, being feral is the most important part of this build, you really need all that extra melee damage. It's a huge part of this build, but now let's talk about the perk cards that will help carry you through 90% of this game's content. Now, let's starting off with the strength field at 15. First perk card up, we're going to have Traveling Pharmacy at 2 because I always carry a crap ton of chems on my character because I am a hoarder just like most people. This one can be swapped out though if you don't carry too much chems on you or if you're just not a hoarder like that. Up next we have Slugger, 1 star for extra auto axe damage. Then we have Incisor 3. This is always handy to cut through tougher enemies. Again, I run West Tech a lot, so this perk card is kind of needed for super mutants if you're using a melee. I mean, I guess you can swap it out for just more pure melee damage, but I feel like the armor kind of turns any weapon that you have into an anti-armor weapon, plus the Furious effect that's on the auto axe. So I think overall you're getting more damage with it on. After that, we have Expert Slugger 3, again for more auto axe damage. Then we have Master Slugger 3 for extra auto axe damage. Any of the sluggers can be swapped out. Like you could have 3 in normal slugger, 3 in expert, and then 1 in master. Doesn't really matter. Then for the final perk card, it could either be Radioactive Strength at 3, or it could be swapped out for Bone Shatter at 3 also. Both of them are ghoul only, but Radioactive Strength works well with the auto axe. It procs a ton, and then Bone Shatter is mainly for bossing. It's great on all of the nuke bosses and the first raid boss. So if you are going up against the Scorch-based Queen, just go ahead and swap out Radioactive Strength for Bone Shatter, and then if you're just going to run West Tech, or if you're just doing your dailies, go ahead and keep Radioactive Strength on for extra damage. Up next, we have Perception only at 1, and then we just have Breathe It In at 1 star, just for some easier rads, nothing too crazy there. Up next, we have Endurance at 9. We have Life Giver at 2 stars, just to get some extra health. It's based off of your endurance. Again, after that whole entire first perk card update, they really made this card decent, and I just suggest everyone have it in 90% of your builds. Up next, we have Starch Genes as 1. This is a must-have for all builds that have mutations. I'm not going to cover the mutations that I have in this video, just because they aren't really necessary for the build itself, and you could kind of have whatever mutations you want. It doesn't really matter. Up next is Thick Skin at 3 star, just for some extra survivability. You could swap it out if you're going to use power armor, but again, this thing just gives you some extra survivability if you don't have power armor, so why not have it on? And then Radiation Power at number 3 is going to be our final one. We're going to have our glow up at all times, so this is kind of a no-brainer. You get 20% extra damage while expending a small amount of glow, which is awesome. Plus the Feral Rage perk means we spend less glow, so it's just really extra damage for glow, which we're constantly keeping up because we're going to have a gamma gun on us at all times. Up next, we have Charisma at 7. First perk card in Charisma is Inspirational at 1 star. I'm always trying to level up, so this is a must-have for pretty much all of my builds. However, if you are level 5,000 for some odd reason, you probably don't need this on because you're not going to be trying to level up too much. However, I'm still trying to hit level 1,000 on this character, and I'm only in the 600s, so we have a little bit of time to go. Next up after that, again, is another essential for anyone who has mutations, Strange in Numbers. This one is just kind of perfect. Everyone else is also running mutations in the game, so you'll pretty much always get this buff if you're on a team with someone, at least if you're on a team with someone above the level 50. Up next is Tenderizer 2 star. Again, this is purely just a extra damage one. You could swap it out, but you'll lose some DPS. If there's something better, or if I should take away the 2 points for Charisma, please let me know in the comments. But I think this is perfect for a melee build. Why not have Tenderizer on there? Just gives you a little bit of extra DPS. And the final card is going to be United Ordeal, another Ghoul only card at 3 star. A lot of people are running Ghoul builds currently, so you'll most likely run into someone that is also a Ghoul on your team, so you'll always get this buff. It's so nice to have the +3 to all of your specials and everything like that. It kind of makes up for the no unyielding on ghouls, just significantly less powerful, obviously, because ghouls are, I guess, beasts in themselves, and they don't really need the unyielding bonuses. However, though, keep this in mind. This is a great perk to have. You necessarily don't need it, though. Like some of the footage here, you're going to see I don't have any other ghouls on my team, but it definitely is nice when you do have a couple of ghouls on your team and you are rocking this perk card. It definitely comes in handy. Up next, we have Intelligence at 15, everyone's favorite. First up is another one that could be swapped out, either Power User at 3 or Mad Scientist when you're not in power, and this is actually where the Feral Scientist name comes from. So Power User is a must-have for anyone who is using Power Armor. I always use it because the Fusion Cores burn so damn fast in Fallout 76. So just keep that in mind. Like, this build isn't really optimized for power armor. However, you can use power armor, and I will talk about what power armor I use. Like, it's great for raids, it's great for expeditions, or if you're getting your ass kicked, or if you really don't feel like staying on top of your glow or anything like that, and you just want to be a lazy auto axe tank. throw on some power armor. However, most of the time I'm going to use Mad Scientist because basically all the weapons that we use in this build, including the auto axe with the electric mod, does benefit from that. So you will be able to do some extra damage again while expending a little bit of glow, but we'll have feral rage and that other perk where we do more damage for some glow. So we'll be double stacking on that. So really I'm just trying to go with as much damage as possible. Speaking of damage, up next we have Science at 2-star. This is just for extra damage on all of our weapons. The Electrified Auto Axe mod benefits from this, so does the Gamma Gun and the Plasma Flamer, so it's a win-win. You could do great damage without this on, but I do suggest you keep them on to one-tap all enemies. Up next, we have Science Expert 2. Again, this is for extra damage on all of our weapons. It benefits all of our weapons, so why not use it? After that, we have Science Master Star 2. This is just for extra damage. Also, I have all of the science perk cards on. You can take one of them off. You could take all of them off. It doesn't matter. If you are a little bit of a lower level, I do suggest maybe you take one of them off because the auto axe will be doing so much damage without the extra 10% from science or 10% from science expert. And up next, we have Stable Tools at 3. This is also pretty essential for basically anyone who's going to use the auto axe and the chainsaw just because they do break so damn fast. I tried using this build without this, and it was just insufferable with how often I had to repair my melee weapon. So keep that in mind. You can take Stable Tools off. I wouldn't suggest it, though. This one is kind of essential for anyone who's going to use the auto axe or chainsaw, like I just said. And finally, for a little bit of extra damage, we have the Science Monster. Again, another ghoul-only perk at 3. This one is just for extra damage. We're always getting hit because we use such close quarters weapons, so it's a no-brainer that we're always going to be doing a little bit of extra damage while having this card on. Intelligence is where we're going to get most of our damage from because of Mad Scientist, all of the science perks, and then the Science Monster perk. This is where we're getting the whole entire Feral Scientist thing from, because we have so much damage coming from intelligence. Moving on to agility at 15. First up, we have Action Boy, 3 stars. We're constantly using AP, so this is a much needed buff. Faster AP regen is always needed. We're going to use some food items to also help with that, but why not have Action Boy on? Up next, we have Gunslinger Expert 2. This is for Onslaught. This is mainly for Onslaught, like I said, plus some extra damage to the weak spot. Onslaught is how we're going to achieve most of our damage because it is currently broken until Bethesda figures out and nerfs it, unfortunately. Then we have Gorilla Expert, at 2-star. Again, this is for Onslaught stacks, which we get a lot of DPS from, and then the extra reload speed is really nice when we're using one of our ranged weapons. Then, moving on, we have Gorilla Master, 3-star. Again, also nice for some extra Onslaught stacks, and when we do use our Gamma Gun or the Flamer, we'll get some nice DPX buffs too. That's not bad. And then finally, we have Adrenaline at 5. I'm on the fence about this one. I think it can be swapped out for some other perk cards, but I keep it on mainly for some extra damage. Again, I run West Tech or super mob heavy areas, so it's always maxed out. I'm always going to be killing an enemy and then moving on to the next one. But yeah, I guess it can be switched out or you can get rid of it. I do enjoy the extra 60% damage, and I don't know how well it will this build will perform if you take it out just for like a straight up 20% bonus at all ranged weapons and everything like that. So I don't really know. However, I don't have evasive in my agility, so just keep that in mind. You may want to mess this up a little bit and swap it around. However, our agility is mainly for Onslaught. I want as many Onslaught stacks as I can get from agility because we're going to use some furious weapons in this build. But agility and intelligence, this is mainly where we get most of our damage from. Agility gives us Onslaught, and then intelligence just gives us raw damage boosting to all of our weapons. Finally, for the perks, we have Luck at 9. First up, we have Bloody Mess. This is purely for the small amount of extra DPS. I didn't know what else to put this point into because I don't use VATS on this build, but if you have a better idea, again, please let me know. I'm trying to tweak this as much as I can to optimize this build. Then up next, we have Ricochet. This is always great to have. It does some extra DPS because reflecting damage is better than taking the damage yourself. And again, it also helps with survivability because you're reflecting the bullets. It doesn't proc too often, but we are wearing light armor, so you know, it's doing the best that it can. It's only 1 point. It doesn't really matter. Up next, we have a must-have for all builds. Again, we have Class Freak. just that 75% reduction in negative mutation effects. Why wouldn't you take it? You'd be silly not to take it. If you're going to put any points into luck, this is the one that you need. Up next, we have Good with Salt at 2, which is maxed out. I do run some food on this build, which we will go over, so I keep this on for convenience. It can be swapped out if you don't really want to run the food, because none of the food items are mandatory to make this build good. They're, again, just for quality of life, but I do like to stock up on company teas and Ragstad meat, so I'm not constantly back at my camp grabbing more when they spoil. And then finally, we have basically one of the best ghoul-only perks, and it's Faulty Spots maxed out. I suggest every ghoul run this perk. It gives extra damage for hitting a weak spot. It's 15%, which is really nice to have when you don't have any VATS criticals, because you can't really use VATS when you're in feral mode. So if you're running around with the auto axe and if you're aiming at super mutants' heads, you will get a nice extra 15% damage on top of the extra damage for hitting the weak spot. So overall, it's really nice. Again, some extra damage pulling in from luck, agility, and intelligence. That's mainly what we're going for because the ghoul has so much built-in survivability. Now, the perks are obviously ridiculously important, but the weapons are the main selling point of this build. You could swap out so many of these perk cards and it wouldn't really matter as long as you're still using these weapons that I'm going to talk about, so please keep that in mind, and I'm going to talk about why these weapons work so well with this specific build. First up, we're going to have the auto axe or the chainsaw if you're a lower level. These are going to be your main weapons and your melee weapon of choice. Like I said, if you're a lower level, go for that chainsaw. It's fine. You won't get any of the buffs from the science cards, but all of the strength cards will carry you. Or if you can get the auto axe with the electric blade mod, that's going to benefit you the most. You will get a benefit from the science cards and also all of the slugger cards, so you'll be getting the maximum amount of damage that you possibly can. Now, for effects for these weapons, I highly suggest you go with the Furious effect because, again, Onslaught is going to be how you get most of your damage if you're using a chainsaw, and it's going to give you a crap ton of extra damage if you're using the auto axe, because most builds are going to have to use Onslaught, or most ghoul builds, are going to have to use Onslaught to get all of their extra damage now that Bloodied isn't an option for them. The other effects don't really matter as much. On this weapon, on this auto axe, I have weapon speed just because it's pretty nice, but you can go with like intelligence or strength or whatever boost you want, whatever fits your playstyle. The only important effect that you put on it is going to be Furious. Next up is an essential part of not only this build, but any ghoul build, and that's going to be the Gamma Gun. This is for a few reasons. Firstly, we need a ranged weapon, and this thing shoots a giant AoE ball of radiation, so we need no accuracy and we barely have to aim. Plus, this thing shreds through human enemies, and I tend to fight a lot of cultists and blood eagles for my videos. Second reason, and more importantly, is the fact that this is the best way to get glow in the whole game. Simply just shoot the ground at your feet a few times and boom, you have full glow. I like to switch to this before my glow breaks when I'm in the middle of a fight if I'm running West Deck, and if I'm clearing it out, my glow breaks, I switch to this thing, shoot the ground, take out a few enemies, then switch back to my auto axe. You'll always get some extra damage from the science cards, and again, you will spend some glow to deal some extra damage with this thing, so it's perfect. It as a sidearm, as an oh shit, I need to heal myself, take this out, take down some enemies, and heal myself. It's perfect. It's a perfect weapon in a pinch. It's awesome. It has a great AoE attack, and again, it will heal you. I prefer to put quad on this bad boy because the default mag, is only 8, so Furious won't be too good, but if you want to go for a full Furious build, you obviously can throw Furious on this bad boy and suck some extra DPS out of it. You just will be losing some DPS in the long run because the quad effect has significantly more ammo. The final weapon I suggest you have is a plasma flamer. Again, if you're super low level, you could use a normal flamer, but you won't benefit from the science cards or the slugger cards. So why the plasma flamer, or even better, an enclave plasma flamer like I have in this video? And that's because you don't need to aim with this thing. You just hold down the trigger and whatever's in front of you will die, and it's ridiculously strong on its own even if you don't have any of those perk cards. The enclave plasma flamer is one of the best weapons in the game, at least before Season 21 comes out and they nerf it into the ground, but it is fantastic. It's also really nice when I run out of AP with the auto axe, or if I need to create some distance between an enemy and myself. I jump on a building, swap to this thing, and spray him down with that, and I'm completely fine while I heal up or something like that. Again, you're going to want to go for the Furious effect to get that Onslaught to proc, and I also would throw on the weapon speed for the second effect too. Besides that, doesn't really matter what you go for. Those are the 3 weapons that you're going to want to use. If you're going to use this on a higher level, then use the Auto Axe, the Gamma Gun, and an Enclave Plasma Flamer. If you're going with a ridiculously low level, use a Chainsaw or Auto Axe if you can get it. Use the Gamma Gun, it's a must-have, and use a Plasma Flamer or a normal Flamer if you really can't get your hands on a Plasma Flamer or Enclave Plasma Flamer. Now that we have weapons over, let's talk about the second most important piece of gear, and that's going to be your armor. What armor do you want to choose while exploring in the wasteland with this build? My opinion, there's really 3 choices, but only one clear winner. The best armor for this build, or any ghoul melee build, is going to be the Thorn's armor. It gives you extra bleed damage on each melee attack, plus it causes melee attackers to take bleed damage, which is really nice. So it's just extra DPS all around. Now, on top of all of that, it has no rad resistance, so it's the best armor to quickly fill up your glow meter, which again is extremely important. So if you're wearing this, you shoot the ground 3 times instead of 5 times with your Gamma Gun to fill up your ghoul meter, and you'll have some extra survivability, plus you will have some extra damage because of you spending your glow for the extra damage through those 2 perk cards. Up next, if you want more protection, then the next best option would be the Brotherhood Recon Armor. Again, it's a pain in the ass to get, either through Daily Ops or Minerva, but it has great protection and it has a lower rad resistance than the Civil Engineer or the Secret Service Armor. But third up, you can just go with the Secret Service Armor. It really doesn't matter. It is a great armor, probably the best armor in the game. However, it's just not as optimized as the Thorn's armor for this particular build. Again, doesn't really matter. Now we're just kind of, picking and choosing to make things more optimized. Go with the Thorn's armor if you have it. If not, go with the Brotherhood Recon. If not, go with the Secret Service. If not, go with the Civil Engineer. It doesn't really matter. However, I think you should go with the Thorn's armor. Finally, for the last piece of gear, I wanted to quickly mention the Power Armor. You can go with, you can really go with whatever you want, but personally, I switch between the Union armor for raids and carry rate, plus it has a pretty low rad resistance for power armor. And then after that, I go with the Vulcan Power Armor for AP regen, but I understand that a lot of people don't have the Vulcan Power Armor full sets yet with the Calibrated Shocks mods, so go with the Union. But again, you could choose whatever power armor you want. It's not really optimized for full power armor usage, this build, but you can throw it on here and there. Again, I use it in expeditions or I use it in raids and everything like that, so I tend to use the Union Power Armor. But if you really wanted to turn yourself into a tank and not worry about glowing for a little bit, then go with the T65 Power Armor. Doesn't really matter, any power armor will do, but again, I use the Union. It helps with carry weight raids, and it has the lowest rad resistance out of any of the good power armors. Now, I wanted to quickly go over the food items that I use to help this build out. They're not necessary, but again, it will help you in the long run if you do use these items here and there. First up, we have the Ragstead meat. I didn't go over mutations because it's not that important to the overall build, but I am a carnivore, as all ghouls should be, so the extra weight from the Ragstead meat really helps. You don't need a lot of gear on this build to make it good. Again, kind of just an auto axe, a gamma gun, a flamer, and then the armor, but I am a hoarder just like every Fallout player, so the extra weight helps. Again, Ragstead meat, you could even have the generator placed at your camp, so you could have an infinite amount of them on demand. Boom, really nice. I go with that every single time I load in. I go straight to my camp and I make some Ragstead meat for my play session. Up next, we have the Mutant Hound Chops for the extra melee damage, which isn't needed at all because you'll one-tap pretty much all mobs with your auto axe, but this specifically comes in handy when going up against bosses like the Scorched Beast Queen, any of the Nuke event bosses, or even the first raid boss. And of course, we need a food item to boost our XP game. Since we're a carnivore, I always keep a few canned meat stews on me at all times. A lot of people do the event when it pops up, Feed the People, so I always just go there, help them out, do this event. They're really easy. You don't need this. It doesn't really offer you any benefits to the build, to the core gameplay. It just gives you some extra XP. which is great for finishing the season faster or just leveling up. Now, next up is the final food/drink item that I constantly have on this build, and it's of course going to be the company tea or coffee for some AP regen. Again, you'll be using an auto axe or chainsaw a lot while using this build, so you'll need as much AP regen as you could get. Plus, going feral does lower your max AP slightly, so any easy way you could boost AP, you gotta do it. You don't want to run out of AP mid-fight, but if you do, you could always switch to your Gamma Gun or your Flamer, one of the two. If you're going up against harder enemies, though, try and pop a couple of these and then just run into battle with the Auto Axe. Boom, you will be perfect. Those are the 4 food items that I suggest you use. Ragstead meat, mutant hound chops, canned meat stew, company tea, and I guess the one mutation that you should get is carnivore, because you're not really going to be using herbivore too much as a ghoul, considering you're supposed to be a psychopath cannibal. I'm going to explain how I use this build in terms of combat, and it's extremely straightforward. There's no tricks to this build. You're mainly going to be using your melee weapon like the auto axe or the chainsaw. This weapon will handle basically all of the game's content that you're going to go up against, from ghouls all the way up to the first raid boss. Again, you're going to really want to get that auto axe with the electrified, but this weapon will have your back. And you're a full health ghoul with a full glow meter, so you won't really need to worry about dying too much. But if you're getting your ass kicked, simply switch to your Gamma Gun. This will be your healing weapon and your oh shit weapon, because it could take down anything from super mutants to ghouls to rad roaches. It doesn't matter. It has enough DPS to kill basically any normal mob you go up against, and if you shoot at the ground, you're gonna AoE blast some rads into yourself, which will turn into glow, which is either going to be more damage for you or is going to be more health. Obviously, you can use toxic goo, but if you carry 500 toxic goo, it'll weigh a lot, while the Gamma Gun basically weighs nothing, does damage to enemies, and tops off your glow meter all at the same time, because it's an AoE'd weapon, and best of all, you don't need VATS to make this thing good. It benefits from all of our science effects, and then if you are getting even more messed up than that, you could switch back to your auto axe, or you could switch to the Enclave Flamer or the just normal plasma flamer if you run out of AP or anything like that. So you're in a corner, you switch to the Gamma Gun, you're out of AP, you healed yourself up, you switch to the flamers because again you're out of AP, you need that to regen, and you could just start tearing house down with that. It doesn't require any aiming or AP, and it destroys everything in sight. Plus, if you have that Furious and Onslaught, it really melts anything in the game. Any gun with those two effects really will melt anything in the game. It doesn't need any other perk damage. For the rifles, for the pistol or heavy guns or anything like that. Just swap between these 3 weapons and you'll be doing top tier damage from the auto axe, the plasma flamer, and you'll constantly have your glow meter topped off because of the Gamma Gun. I think this is the best combination for your ghoul. You get as much energy weapon boosting damage as possible, which also affects the auto axe with the electrified mod, so you'll be able to take full advantage of these 3 weapons. Plus, again, that Gamma Gun is just a must-have. Just keep switching between the Gamma Gun for glow and your 2 main DPS weapons. Have the auto axe until you run out of AP, then switch to the flamer, and then if you're getting your ass handed to you, simply switch to the Gamma Gun. These 3 guns are literally enough to get you through all of this game's content, including the raids, including everything. You could also just use the flamer. You could also just use the Gamma Gun. You could also just use the auto axe. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to use out of these 3 weapons, you 100% can flawlessly. And there we have it, ladies and gents of the Wasteland. We've made it to the end of another Fallout 76 video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked this build. Again, it's a total work in progress, so if you would change anything, let me know in the comments. I'm always tweaking cards, and I haven't put too much time into the ghouls, but this build has just been so much fun, and it's making me play a ghoul a lot more. I just wanted to make a video showing the possibility in terms of combos you could do as a ghoul, because there really is no defined meta anymore, obviously, well, besides melee, but this just kind of scratching the surface of what you can do with your ghoul. You can kind of make it into whatever the hell you want. I will have a gunslinger video out soon, but again, let me know if you would tweak anything, and I will make a Feral Scientist 2.0 build whenever I tweak this build and make it perfect. But as always, I appreciate you motherfuckers for watching this motherfucking video, and I will see you out there in the wasteland.